Are you thinking of moving to Washington, but you're having second thoughts because you heard about the Seattle freeze? Do you know what the Seattle freeze is? Well, if not, we're about to get into it, so stay tuned. Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm so excited that you could join me today. Today we're going to talk about the Seattle freeze. But first, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel. And don't forget to ring that notification bell so that every time I post a video, you'll know about it. So, have you ever heard of the Seattle freeze? Let's talk about it. The Seattle freeze describes a perceived barrier to making new friends in the city. Newcomers often report feeling that locals are standoffish, hesitant to engage in social activities, and seemingly non-committal in their interactions. It's not unusual to hear stories of Seattle residents being clannish and reluctant to initiate new friendships with newbies moving into the state. It has been said that the Seattle freeze stems from its cultural heritage. Some of the first settlers in Seattle were Scandinavian, and their culture could have had an influence on Seattle. Their traditional values contain a certain level of aloofness and detachment. It is also believed by medical professionals that cloudy weather can cause brain fog, sluggishness, and even depression to a certain extent. So, is it real? I set out on a mission to find out. I went and interviewed some Seattleites, some who are native to Seattle and some who are transplants like myself, to find out what people who live here really think of this phenomenon and if they think it's true or not. And some of the answers may surprise you. So I ended up having so much footage that there will be a part 2 of this because there was no way that I could fit all of the footage in this video. So be on the lookout for part 2 after this one is released. All right, so let's go ahead and get into these interviews and stay tuned till afterwards so I can tell you what I really think of the Seattle freeze. So we are here in the heart of Seattle in Capitol Hill. We are in rush hour right now. So this is what I talk about when I talk about traffic. This is real, in real time. You heard of the Seattle freeze?
Yes.
And do you think it's a real phenomenon, and have you seen it in action?
Yeah, ish. I was just talking to my tech about it, that it's like chronic RBF, you know? Mm-hmm. It's like a lot of people got RBF all the time, but people tend to be friendly when you talk to them.
Right.
But people aren't overtly outgoing like I was used to in the South.
Yeah.
So, which can be good and bad depending on the day and what's going on.
Right.
So.
Keep it real.
It is real. It is so real. And you and I talk about this all the time. Like, coming from a different state, you really notice it. Seattle is filled with so many transplants, so many people from all over the country, which you would think, since that's the case, you would think that so many people would really want to connect. And there are a lot of people that want to connect, but whatever is in the air here, people just kind of stay to themselves. They don't make eye contact with you when you're like walking by them. They don't greet you. They don't even, no one likes small talk, but there's not even any small talk with people. I think the biggest thing that I've noticed just with people in my life previously as well,
got a boat going by.
Got a boat. People are so flaky.
Yeah.
Just non-committal, flaky, and it's hard to get people to commit to things. And I think a lot of it has to do maybe with the gloomy weather. I don't know, but it is most definitely a thing for sure.
Unfortunately, yes, there is a stigma around this region, Portland also, just this whole corridor of this side of the country where the stigma is that when you meet somebody, they're just pretending to be friendly, they're just pretending to be your friend, and really they're just being polite, and then you presumably never really get to meet that person anymore. I have seen it in action. I'm unfortunately guilty of it sometimes. But yeah, it's hard to explain, but the reason why. But I have seen it in action. I've been trying my best to always be friendly and
extremely loud.
Yeah.
Oh, it's definitely a real phenomenon. I think, you know, again, I grew up in Kentucky for about 4 or 5 years, for Michigan for almost a year, for Indiana for 3.5 years. I was born and raised in Florida for about 5 years. And my feeling is that it's not necessarily, I don't think like people are just trying to be like angry or cold shoulder to people. I think it's because we live in an area where it's so intense economically. I think people are just more vigilant and focused on like whatever they're dealing with in their own world, that they become a little less aware or like receptive or responsive or empathetic maybe to their environment, because you're just so caught up in how fast things move in this area that you might say, hey, how's it going? And they might just kind of, you know, and just keep nodding because their mind's so caught up on whatever they're dealing with in business or whatever else.
They're trying to make that money, so they're not really worried about like making new friends.
Yeah, they're just maybe in a little bit of a, you know, socio-survival mode more than trying to.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it.
I do think it's a real phenomenon. I don't know if it's a freeze, it's been frozen. It's been frozen, didn't just happen. Yeah, it's kind of I think a cultural thing, like people are a little bit more closed off probably. I have made a lot of friends here, including you, but I've noticed most of them are not actually from here, unfortunately.
We're all the transplant tribe.
Yeah, nothing to get, so it's a little bit of a cultural thing. Like for an example, I went on Friday night, I went to hear some live music, and it was like really vibrant, like salsa music. And you look around and no one's moving, everyone's sitting. And that's just kind of like an example of what the Seattle freeze is to me, just kind of hard to get people to react and respond.
Right.
I was like, are you kidding me? Nobody's dancing, nobody's up moving, what's going on? But so people are super nice, but I just think you gotta like try to pull them out of the shell a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Your name? Betsy. And are you originally from Seattle?
I'm not. I'm from Montana.
Montana. Okay. And how long have you lived in Seattle?
22 years.
Okay. And what is your opinion on the Seattle freeze?
I mean, Montana is just different because it's everyone says hi to everybody on the road. You know, like you're walking by and like all the neighbors, hey. You know? But I haven't felt iced out or anything in Seattle by any means. It doesn't seem quite as friendly, but I wouldn't say it's a freeze.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so how have you combated that in making friends throughout the years?
I mean, I've always been friendly, so.
Do you have that Montana spirit when you're just like,
hey, yeah, you're gonna talk to me.
But you have noticed it, that it's kind of a thing.
It's different. It's different, but I wouldn't say it's like bad. It's just different.
Yeah.
You experienced it?
Oh, yes. So after saying all that about Missouri, I will say people are just friendlier there. Like you just can go shopping at a grocery store and people will just come up and start chatting with you. And I wasn't from a small town either. Just people, you know, if you're walking in a park or walking on a sidewalk, people just make eye contact with you, say hi, you know, hello. At the very least, you say hello to people as you pass them. You might mention that the weather's nice or something, strike up a small conversation. When I came out here, it was just shocking. Like, people look down. Some people say hi. I don't want to generalize, but yeah, no one in the store is talking. I remember one girl I saw, she had this like cute blue highlights in her hair, and I was like, oh, cute highlights. She like jumped back and looked terrified for a second. Like, I don't know you. Why are you talking to me? And she's like, what? Oh, you're complimenting my hair. Thank you. And I just thought, what? I feel like I terrified this person. I was just passing a compliment. Yeah, I was a stranger. I'll never see them again. But back home, that's what you do. If you see something nice, I'm like, actually beautiful. I don't know you. I love your eyeshadow. Cute hair, like your dress. Strangers will say that to each other.
I don't even know what the Seattle freeze is. So I'd say it's not a real phenomenon because I've never even heard of it.
Oh, wow. Okay. And you?
I've never heard of it, but.
Okay. So it's a phenomenon where people believe that, well, people who move here are transplants like myself, find that it's hard to make friends. People are kind of like often, you know, cold and maybe a little, standoffish is probably a good word. So what do you think now?
I think that it is very real. People here tend to have like aggression, lots of anger. Like if you go out to the club, like you're not gonna be met with people who want to like socialize. They're gonna be talking with their friends that they came with. So you might not even like meet or socialize with new people. It's very, very hard to like put yourself into a community that you're not already from. So I believe, sometimes people are very closed off at like making new friends.
Right.
Yeah, I totally agree with what she said.
Yeah.
I never heard the term until, I don't know, maybe a decade ago, but to me, I feel like that doesn't resonate as a Seattle cultural thing. It's maybe more just like a human thing that has evolved as digital culture that's changed. And I just think that we just met tonight. It was just like humans who were available and willing to say hello. And I think that happens in Seattle all the time.
Yeah.
This is my experience in Seattle. It's a chat and making friends. And I think that's just like the onus is on us.
Right.
To like be inviting. And I think that happens here all the time if you're local and available.
Yeah. Yeah, so making yourself open.
Yeah.
Okay.
But, I don't know. I've lived here for a while. I don't know what it would be like to move to Chicago or Atlanta right now.
Sure.
Are those places more inviting? Or do we just live in a more closed digital world where it's harder to meet people? That's like what I think of when I think of Seattle. It feels less of a Seattle culture thing and more like a shifting times. It feels like a more global culture.
Yeah.
What do you think of Seattle?
Oh.
Is that a real experience here?
Yes, I would say that I had a hard time when I first moved here.
And so what is your opinion of the Seattle freeze? Do you think it's a real phenomenon?
Yes, it is undeniably a phenomenon.
Okay. And in what ways have you experienced it?
I think it's just this ever-present being amongst people within the community of just this aloofness, just this, that camaraderie is just non-existent amongst strangers, unless you're friends or friends with people, but even then, unless your friends are not from here, But even so, when you meet people local to Seattle, there's just that little bit of disconnect that's happening.
Yeah. And have you, or did you find ways to combat that and make friends? Like, how did you combat that?
I mean, I think to everybody there's just that human. So maybe guards are just a little bit, higher in Seattle. But once you get past that, once you move, through those walls, and you sort of can, welcome people into your space, they sort of open up themselves to welcome you into their space.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I think meetup groups are a good way to go. That's how we met.
Yeah,
we met
that
through
is
a
how
meetup
we
group.
met. Yeah.
I think a little bit it is. I think it is a lot of times also exaggerated, where not every single person you meet in Seattle is going to be like that.
Right.
So, yeah, there definitely is. I've experienced it myself, but I think also that can deter people into thinking, oh, hey, everyone in Seattle is not friendly or puts their head down and doesn't talk to people.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So you think it's real, but not with everybody?
Yes,
Okay.
It's real, just not with everybody.
Okay. Have you observed it in action?
I have observed it. I mean, you see it a lot of times when, you're just out and about in the grocery store or going to a restaurant or bars and just walking past people, you can tell.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, I've also, met some incredibly open, friendly people out in those same places.
Right.
So.
Okay.
I grew up here, and so and I've traveled a lot, so I kind of compare, like it's easy enough for me to compare like maybe a general population of another area. And I do think there is something unique to Seattle or the Pacific Northwest, that the reputation or the Seattle freeze comes from something, and I've tried to observe it for as many years as I've been hearing that term, to think like, well, is it really true? Like, kind of comparing it to the concept that people are the same everywhere. People are people. But I think this general feeling that people are maybe a little more reserved here, not as maybe not as outgoing or not as social or maybe as like warm and bubbly as some other places in the country that I've traveled. So I think that probably is indicative of a little bit of, you know, a chilly air about
a chilly vibe.
A chilly vibe. But on the flip side, I see a lot of exactly the opposite. Like I see a lot of like really great community building and friendship circles and networking. So I think maybe we get a little harder rap than we should.
So it's definitely a real phenomenon. Definitely something that has happened. I haven't experienced it. I'm one of the locals, so I know the little tricks, like don't use an umbrella. It's a quick way to give yourself away. But it's definitely something where like new people that are newer to Seattle, transplants from other areas, they very much so just kind of get the cold shoulder. And I don't know if it's something that you can like just pick out and feel, but it's definitely, I've seen it occur. Like people are very kind of like in their own lane, doing their own thing.
Right.
I do believe it's a real phenomenon. I've been out here 3 years, and besides my, like I said, my best friend who lives out here, I have not really met anyone. I have a neighbor who I hang out with, but we have doggy play dates. I have a few friends that I work with, but they have younger kids, and it's more of a colleague situation. And I just find people are not as friendly. I'm very much an extrovert. I'm going. I've moved all over the country. Always had really good friendships, and here I don't think I've ever been lonelier.
Oh wow.
You know, it's definitely like it's a point of contention. You know, it's like, who's to blame? When did it start? You know, like, I'm not from here, it's gotta be the locals. The locals are like, oh, it never happened. It's the transplants are bringing it. And the transplants are like, well, I'm not those transplants. There's those transplants and these transplants. And because I always have to defend, I'm a graphic designer for the county, so I moved here. Yes, for that job, but mostly because I think Seattle's cool. I think like the topography of the region is amazing. And, you know, it's beautiful. You can't argue that. Yeah. Unless you like flat. I mean, some people do, right? But anyway, but it is very different here. You know, I go to New Orleans a lot. That's a very lively, very colorful in every sense of the word type of city. New York City, I've lived, Jersey and so forth. DC's very government forward. The East Coast is very direct in your face. I would argue that folks out here are not that way. You know, it's a very much more laid back style of life. It's a very much more, I would argue passive, kind of, but not to say that that's a bad thing, but just definitely not confrontational, not like in your face. And so maybe as a result, I would say that whether it be, you know, the indigenous locals, or when I say indigenous, I just mean people who are born here, or the transplants who move here for that sort of culture, who like the sort of introverted or maybe keep to yourself type of folks. Maybe they're lacking in the desire to engage with other people.
Right. So yes, born and raised in Tacoma, Washington, and had no idea that was a thing until I went to college in like 2000. I'm gonna age myself. And everyone in Bellingham that was attending Western or Whatcom would just be waving hi and hello and like greeting you, making eye contact on the street. And I was really taken back by it. And I felt like, oh my gosh, these people are so nice and genuine. But I didn't know that Tacoma had anything to do with like not that until I experienced what I just told you about. So
right. Yeah.
Oh, it's absolutely real. I think it's totally real, and I think it kind of works as a bug. Like, I think everybody kind of catches it, even the ones that complain about it. Like, I think it's very real where it's, I call it the big dark, which is when around November, late October, where it gets really dark, like at 4 p.m., it's cold, it's rainy, like nobody wants to spend any time outside. I just, ever since we've lived here, I have noticed that there are a ton of people, especially my age, that have a hard time of wanting to like hang out. And that takes up a big part of the year. Like it's May right now and it's still cold and wet. So Yeah, I think that's really weird. And I also say too, like, at least from my experience being from Alabama, there are a lot of career driven like folks. And I think they're like, I'm kind of like taking this out of the air, but I have a theory that there should be probably a correlation between like people who are very career driven and, not having or not taking the time to kind of get out of your shell, spend time with other people, or like get out and be exposed to the communities around you.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely observed it in Austin. Very familiar with the term. My experience, I feel, is a little bit different in that, like, Seattle seems to be like the neighborhoods themselves are like little enclaves. Groups and friend groups seem to like form in similar ways. My in was through the restaurant world. And it's a really small world once you're in it. Like, everybody knows everybody. So being more or less an extroverted person and being out and meeting lots of people, I think I quickly kind of immersed myself in that layer of it. So didn't feel the freeze as much as I think I might otherwise have.
Yeah, I mean, it's a real thing, but it's kind of not just Seattle specific, I guess. I kind of look at it, if you go to a city that has too many people that are from that city, then usually people kind of already have their friend groups and things like that, and they're not as willing to be open to meeting new people. If you go to a city like Austin, Texas, where no one is from there, everyone's from a different location, everyone seems to be the opposite of that. So it's kind of a product of the environment as well. I don't know if it's just specifically a Seattle thing, or if it's just, when I moved here 20 years, there was a lot of people from here. There wasn't too many people coming here like they were going to other areas like Southern California, right? You go down to a bar in Southern California and a lot of people aren't from there. They're from all over. They're from the East Coast, they're from the Midwest, they're from the West Coast. So I think that was a lot of it. Now, what I can't tell you is that maybe now I'm part of the Seattle Freeze because I've been here so long and I have my base of friends and everything like that. And there have been a new base of people that have moved into the area via Amazon and Microsoft and Google and all those jobs. But I don't know if they're playing into that cultural thing like you see in Austin, Texas, where everyone's just kind of not from there and they want to meet and greet people. So I don't know.
Right.
Yes and no.
Okay. Why?
Want to explain?
Yeah.
It can be a phenomenon if you allow it to be.
Okay.
And it also depends on your environment. In general, in the city, I think it's real. I go running every day, and there's nothing more frustrating when you pass someone and you're like, "Hey, how's it going?" And they're just like, it's like, okay. Or when you hold the door open for someone, because that's just good Midwestern manners, and they just walk right through and don't even acknowledge that you did something nice for them. So in that respect, I think so. But then I work in the music business, and I moved on from records, and for 20 years I've been in this place doing live music, and we're predominantly an all ages venue. And when you're in the music community and an artistic community, you don't really see the freeze as much, because music is one of those, for lack of a, I mean, it's a product, but it's a very emotional product, and it sort of breaks down barriers. It does, music can unite people.
Yeah.
And so most people that are regularly coming to the environment in which I predominantly operate are their guards down a little bit more. They're here to release, have a good time, be entertained, and a lot of the, for lack of a better term, BS that's out there in the real world sort of gets left at the door. So I would say the environment that I've created and I'm a part of doesn't seem to have nearly as much of a freeze, because people let their guard down. They're here to have a good time.
Yeah.
But I can also see on the other side, when you have a city with a bunch of transplants and, becoming more and more a bunch of computer programmers and people that spend a lot of time in front of a computer and don't really work on their social skills, I can see how that would be a real thing.
Yeah.
Anywhere. People gripe about the rain, but there's something everywhere. Texas is too hot, allergens are bad, traffic is worse. Minnesota was freezing cold most of the year. worst case scenario, it gets a little bit gray, put on a raincoat, go outside anyways, you'll be fine.
Right.
So it's not that bad.
I feel that. I agree.
Good thing we didn't touch on dating, because that's
Oh yeah, that's a whole nother, we can do a whole nother video on that.
Yeah.
So, was I able to make friends? So I would have to say that yes, I do think the Seattle freeze is real. You know, when I first moved here, it was really difficult. I would meet a lot of people at social events and, you know, we would exchange numbers and we're like, dude, we're totally gonna hang out, like totally, and we'd totally be vibing and have a great time, right? And you exchange numbers and you might even exchange a few texts. But then at some point, you know, you might ask them to hang out and you're sitting there waiting for a text like. But I think the number one barrier is the weather. For those of you who live in the Midwest or the Southwest, like where I'm from, imagine coming from a sunny place, right? And when you live like in New Mexico, it did rain, you know, we have monsoon season and stuff there. But for the most part, it's sunny. Even in the wintertime, it's cold, but it's still sunny out. And so when we did get a day of rain, it was like, oh, I want to cuddle up with a book and like to look out the window, watch the rain on the window and just listen to the rain and all of that, right? Well, imagine having 200 plus of those days in a row, roughly. That is, it makes it hard to motivate yourself to want to go out. When they have the happy lights and, you know, they say to make sure you have all your vitamin D and take your vitamin D supplements and all of that. But to me, in my opinion, there is no replacement for looking out the window and seeing sunlight. You know what I mean? There's just no replacement for that. So let me tell you how I was able to get past the Seattle freeze. I started going to meetup groups. I got on meetup.com and I started finding places that I wanted to go. I loved Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and so when I first moved here, I found a meetup where they would watch Buffy the Vampire Slayer at this person's house. And so I started going there and became friends with him, and that snowballed into a whole slew of people that I ended up meeting. You have to find something you like, go to it consistently, people will get to know you and they'll start opening up. So one last thing I will say is that the summers here are absolutely beautiful. You know, regardless of the talk of all the gloominess and the rain and everything, yes, there's that. But during the summertime here, it is so beautiful. And I remember the first time that I landed here to come visit, you can smell like the trees and the oceany kind of smell, but like then you can smell like the greenery. Like before I even got off the plane, I could smell it. I was just like, wow, you know, the air is so fresh and the water is so clean and tastes so good here. And, you know, regardless of anything else, I would not change it. I've met so many of my best friends here. I've had the time of my life here. I had never even been on a ferry before I moved here, you know, so there are so many things, you know, living in a desert, coming from a desert environment that I've been able to experience out here. So I wouldn't change it. You know, I met so many of my friends here. I met my fiance here. It's all good, you know? So if Washington or Seattle is somewhere where you really want to move, don't let the Seattle freeze stop you from coming here. It's all up to you, and if you want that to be real for yourself, you know, I think it also has a lot to do with your mental health and what you have going on up here. So you can push past that. Don't let that stop you if moving here is something that you really want to do. All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope that you liked it, and I hope that you learned something about the Seattle freeze and how to combat it if you're thinking about moving here. If you are thinking about moving here, I would be honored to help you find your new landing spot. My information is in the description box down below, along with a link to some free resources that I feel will help you get started on your moving journey. And if you have any questions or anything like that, use that information to contact me. Please give this video a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Stay tuned for part 2 of this video that will be coming soon. It's definitely worth checking out the full interviews because it's so funny and there's just so many golden nuggets from people, different types of Seattleites. All right, everyone, well, thanks for watching. Take care, and I'll see you all in the next one. We're going to lunch.